She settled into first class, expecting the luxury she paid for, until a flight attendant's words froze her in place. "We don't serve champagne to your kind." Gasps, stares, a humiliating silence. But what the crew didn't know, this black woman wasn't just anyone. And with one phone call, she turned their world upside down. Firings, panic, a scandal that rocked the airline. And by the time the plane landed, that flight crew had lost everything. Dr. Maya Washington checks her watch, 5:43 a.m. The pre-dawn airport buzzes with travelers as she adjusts the collar of her tailored blazer, smooths her twist out, and scans her boarding pass. First class to Chicago, a necessary luxury after 3 sleepless nights, preparing for tomorrow's keynote at the National Aviation Safety Conference. As the newly appointed Director of Industry Standards at the Federal Aviation Administration, she's earned this moment of respite. The gate attendant's smile falters slightly upon checking her ticket. "First class? Let me verify that." A pause, a second glance between the ticket and Maya's face. The worn familiarity of the moment settles in her stomach. That same questioning look she's encountered since her first executive role 15 years ago. On board, Maya settles into 2A, exhaling as the cool leather embraces her. The flight attendant, Brenda, moves efficiently through the cabin, offering champagne to the businessman across the aisle, his laptop displaying stock charts. When she reaches Maya, her practiced smile tightens. "Water? Coffee?" Brenda asks, gaze fixed just past Maya's shoulder. "Champagne, please. Dom Perignon, if you have it." Maya's voice, the same measured tone that commands boardrooms, carries clearly. Brenda's lips thin to a pale line. "We don't serve champagne to your kind." The cabin freezes. The businessman in 2B looks up, eyes widening. An older white couple in row 3 exchange glances. Maya's heartbeat pounds in her ears, a familiar drumbeat of humiliation transformed through years of experience into something harder, colder. The words echo, not just Brenda's, but countless others. The professor who suggested she consider nursing instead of engineering. The real estate agent who couldn't show certain neighborhoods. The security guard who followed her through Saks Fifth Avenue last week. "I beg your pardon." Maya's voice remains steady, though her hands clench imperceptibly. "Coach passengers aren't allowed in first class during boarding," Brenda clarifies. Louder now, as if speaking to someone hard of hearing. "You'll need to return to your assigned seat." Maya doesn't move. "My assigned seat is 2A, first class." Brenda's eyes narrow. There must be a mistake. She inspects the boarding pass again, lips pursed. "Wait here." As Brenda retreats to confer with another flight attendant, Kevin, his name tag reads, Maya reaches for her phone. Not to record, not to post on social media, but to make a single call that will alter the trajectory of this flight and several careers before wheels up. What the flight crew doesn't realize, Maya Washington isn't just flying to Chicago to give a speech. She's flying to finalize the federal safety compliance review for this very airline, a review that now hangs in perilous balance. Maya's thumb hovers over her phone. 20 years of professional experience have taught her to calculate every response. Is this worth it? The familiar weight of the question, the mental calculus black professionals perform daily, settles on her shoulders. Kevin approaches, Brenda hovering behind him. Ms. Washington, there seems to be a misunderstanding with your seating arrangement. His tone is placating, practiced. Dr. Washington, Maya corrects quietly, and there's no misunderstanding. Well, Dr. Washington, we need to verify your ticket again. Sometimes these computer errors. There's no error, Maya interrupts, maintaining calm, and I'd appreciate the same courtesy extended to the other first-class passengers. She gestures toward the businessman's champagne. A flicker of recognition crosses Kevin's face, not of her position, but of the situation unfolding. Of course, Brenda will bring your champagne right away. Brenda doesn't move. Kevin, I really think... Now, Brenda. Kevin's smile remains fixed, but his tone hardens. As Brenda retreats, the businessman across the aisle leans over. That was completely inappropriate. I'm Harold Jennings, by the way. He extends his hand. His wedding ring catches the light. Platinum, expensive. Maya shakes it. Maya Washington. You handled that with remarkable poise. I would have lost it. His smile seems genuine. Are you in finance too? Before Maya can answer, Brenda returns with champagne. She places it on Maya's tray without making eye contact, the glass hitting the surface with slightly too much force, champagne sloshing over the rim. Thank you, Maya says, though Brenda is already walking away. Harold shakes his head. Unbelievable. Maya's phone vibrates. A text from her assistant. Safety board is assembled for tomorrow. VP of Operations for Atlas Airways confirmed attendance. The irony doesn't escape her. Tomorrow she'll be evaluating the same airline that can't evaluate her as a legitimate first-class passenger today. The plane begins taxiing. Maya takes a sip of champagne, feeling the bubble of rage beneath her composed exterior. She's worked too hard, broken too many barriers, to be treated like an interloper in a space she's earned. During takeoff, Maya notices the flight captain's announcement. This is Captain Richard Thompson. Welcome aboard Atlas Airways Flight 1382 to Chicago. Another text arrives as they reach cruising altitude. A photo of tomorrow's conference room setup. Maya zooms in on the table placards. Her name centered, flanked by airline executives, including Captain Richard Thompson, Atlas Airways Director of Flight Operations. The seatbelt sign dings off. Maya watches as another flight attendant, Diane, brings fresh drinks to row 1. Her service is impeccable. Warm smiles, attentive questions, careful pouring. When she reaches Maya, the warmth dims noticeably. Anything else I can get you? Diane asks, perfunctory. Actually, yes. I'd like to speak with the lead flight attendant. Harold raises an eyebrow. Going to file a complaint? Not exactly, Maya responds. The lead flight attendant, James, arrives promptly. Early 50s, silver-streaked hair, crisp uniform. How can I help you today? Maya keeps her voice low. I'd like to understand your airline's policy on passenger discrimination. James blinks. I'm sorry. I was refused service by one of your flight attendants, apparently because she didn't believe I belonged in first class. James's professional demeanor falters. That's certainly not our policy. I'll speak with... I don't want an apology, Maya interrupts. I want to understand if this is systematic or individual behavior. Because tomorrow morning, I'll be evaluating Atlas Airways operational standards as the FAA's Director of Industry Standards. The color drains from James's face. Behind him, Brenda is watching their interaction, her expression shifting from suspicion to confusion as she observes James's changing demeanor. Dr. Washington, James begins, recognition dawning. I had no idea. Few people do, Maya responds, until they need to. As James retreats to the galley, urgent whispers erupt among the flight crew. Maya closes her eyes briefly, the weight of being both victim and potential punisher settling uncomfortably on her shoulders. This isn't the first time her position has been revealed after mistreatment, a pattern that reinforces what she's always known. Respect shouldn't depend on title or authority. Her phone buzzes again. Her 16-year-old daughter, Zoe. Crush that keynote tomorrow, Mum. Show them how it's done. Attached is a selfie of Zoe in front of her science fair project on aerodynamics. The sight centers Maya, reminding her what these battles are really about. Captain Thompson's voice comes over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some light turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seat belts. The announcement seems premature. The flight is smooth. Minutes later, Captain Thompson emerges from the cockpit, making his way directly to Maya's seat. Heads turn. This is unusual. "Dr. Washington," he says quietly, "I wonder if I might have a word with you in private." Maya raises an eyebrow. "I'm comfortable speaking here, Captain." He shifts uncomfortably. "I've been informed of an unfortunate incident. On behalf of Atlas Airways, I want to personally apologize." The surrounding passengers watch with interest. Harold's expression shows growing understanding. "Captain Thompson," Maya begins, "I appreciate the gesture, but this isn't about an apology. It's about a pattern I've observed not just today, but throughout my 20 years in aviation safety." The captain's professional smile wavers. "I assure you this isn't representative." "Isn't it?" Maya cuts in, her voice still quiet but carrying. "Because in my experience, these incidents reflect deeper organizational issues. The same oversight that allows a flight attendant to profile passengers is often reflected in maintenance checks, safety protocols, and emergency response readiness." Thompson's face hardens. "With all due respect, Dr. Washington, one flight attendant's regrettable behavior hardly reflects our safety standards." "With equal respect, Captain, culture manifests at every level. Tomorrow's review isn't just about checklists and procedures. It's about whether Atlas Airways fosters a culture of attentiveness and respect. So far, my experience suggests otherwise." A tense silence falls. Thompson's jaw works as he calculates his response. Behind him, James confers urgently with Brenda, whose face has lost all color. From the aisle, a new voice. "Excuse me." It's an older black woman from row 7. "I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Dorothy Jenkins, retired FAA inspector. What happened here today has happened to me more times than I can count over 40 years of flying." Thompson's eyes widen as Dorothy continues. "The difference is, Doctor, Washington here has the position to actually do something about it, and if I were you, I'd be very concerned about tomorrow's review." Thompson's professional veneer cracks completely. "Dr. Washington, please. This airline employs thousands. Our safety record is impeccable." "Safety isn't just about mechanical reliability, Captain. It's about human reliability, judgment, awareness of bias, the ability to see situations clearly rather than through preconceived notions. If your staff can't correctly identify a first-class passenger, what else might they misidentify?" Harold clears his throat. "For what it's worth, I'm an Atlas Airways Platinum member, and I've witnessed similar incidents. Never said anything. Maybe I should have." The realization hits Maya. This moment isn't just about her personal vindication. It's about something larger, the accumulation of countless small injustices that create systemic failure. Just as a plane crashes rarely from one catastrophic error, but from a cascade of minor oversights. Maya makes her decision. She reaches into her briefcase and retrieves a business card, handing it to Captain Thompson. "My direct line. I'd like to speak with your CEO before tomorrow's meeting. Not about punishing individual employees, but about examining the culture that shaped today's interaction." Thompson takes the card, his hand slightly unsteady. "I'll arrange it immediately." As he returns to the cockpit, Maya notices Brenda being escorted to the rear galley by James, her face streaked with tears. It's not the vindictive satisfaction Maya might have expected to feel. Instead, there's a complex weight. The knowledge that systems don't change through individual punishment alone, but through fundamental reconstruction. The Chicago skyline emerges through clouds as the plane begins its descent. Maya's phone fills with pre-landing emails, agenda confirmations, speaking points, logistical details for tomorrow's review. Among them, a message from Atlas Airways CEO, meeting confirmed. 7 a.m. Deeply concerned about your experience. Harold gathers his things. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this admirably. Most people would demand firings, lawsuits. Maya considers this. Firing Brenda doesn't fix the problem. It just makes her someone else's problem, with the same biases, working in another industry. The plane touches down with a gentle shudder. As passengers prepare to disembark, Captain Thompson makes a final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying Atlas Airways. For those continuing their journey with us, we strive to make every experience exceptional. Sometimes we fall short of that goal, and for that, we sincerely apologize. Maya recognizes the carefully crafted non-apology. As first-class passengers rise, she notices Brenda standing rigidly in the galley, eyes downcast. The power dynamic has inverted completely, a shift that brings Maya no satisfaction. James approaches one last time. Dr. Washington, your car service is waiting at the gate. And I want you to know, I've worked with Brenda for 7 years. She's not a racist? Maya finishes. Perhaps not intentionally, but bias doesn't require intent. It requires only unexamined assumptions and organizational cultures that permit them to flourish. As Maya exits the plane, Dorothy Jenkins falls into step beside her. You know they're just going to perform contrition now, mandatory diversity training, carefully worded press releases. Maya nods. Probably, but performance can become habit, given enough time and pressure. You really believe that? Maya thinks of her daughter, Zoe, whose generation pushes harder, accepts less, expects more. I have to, otherwise what am I teaching tomorrow? At the terminal, Maya's assistant waits with a tablet displaying breaking news. FAA review set to reshape airline industry standards. The stakes of tomorrow have grown, not just for Atlas Airways, but for an industry under increasing scrutiny. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Harold from the flight. Wanted you to know I've emailed Atlas's board about what I witnessed. Carbon copied several major investors. Some things need to change from within, too. Maya smiles slightly. A small victory, perhaps, but meaningful. Change requires pressure from all sides: regulatory, financial, public, personal. In the car heading downtown, Maya opens her laptop to review her keynote. The title slide reads, Beyond Mechanical, Human Factors in Aviation Safety. She adds a new subtitle, How Organizational Culture Affects Passenger Security. By evening, news has spread through industry channels. Maya's phone fills with messages from other black executives, sharing similar experiences, offering support. Among them, a text from Dorothy. They'll try to make this about one bad employee, don't let them. Maya responds, I won't. In her hotel room, Maya FaceTimes Zoe, who's bursting with excitement about tomorrow's science fair. You nervous about your speech, Mum? Maya considers the question. Not nervous, resolute. Like when you took on that airline that lost my cello last year. Something like that, but bigger. After they hang up, Maya stands at the window overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. Tomorrow's meeting with Atlas's CEO won't solve systemic racism. Tomorrow's review won't erase centuries of bias. Brenda's retraining, if it happens, won't transform an industry. But the accumulation of these moments, these refusals to accept the status quo, might gradually alter the landscape, like water shaping stone. Not in grand, dramatic gestures, but in persistent, unyielding pressure. For Zoe, for Dorothy, for the next generation of young women who shouldn't have to prove they belong in the seats they've purchased. The question remains, hanging in the air like the planes circling O'Hare. In a world where belonging is still questioned based on appearance, how many of us become complicit through silence? And how many opportunities for change do we miss by looking away when the injustice doesn't touch us directly? Maya turns from the window, adjusts her blazer, and begins revising tomorrow's speech. The real work is just beginning.